demonstrated that capacity by moving their production after they came into existence from where it was to quite commendable heights, demonstrating what can be done with existing assets. So please welcome, speaking this time on behalf of Renaissance, the Vice President, Projects and Engineering. Welcome, Abimbola Tijani.
Thank you. Energy for people and planet. Good morning, everyone. Standing on existing protocol, I'd like to welcome all of you to this auspicious event. On behalf of the board and the management and the staff of the Renaissance Africa Energy Company Limited. And I was emphasizing there in an earlier conversation. Welcome and thank you all for coming. The OLEF has been the flagship annual event of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, Nigerian Council. And it affords the Renaissance Africa Energy Company Limited the opportunity to continue our support for such an iconic annual event, which has the vision to provide a veritable platform for quality industry analysis and for collaboration with government, with regulators, and key industry players, all of whom are represented in the house today. So I therefore join the organizers to welcome our distinguished guests and speakers to this year's OLEF event, which coincides with the 70th anniversary of production from Oloibiri in 1956. So this year, 2026, we have been producing hydrocarbons for 70 long years. It's an auspicious year. It's an auspicious year. It's an auspicious event today. It also coincides with the first anniversary of the Renaissance Africa Energy Company Limited, obtained through the assent of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government for the landmark acquisition of the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited, SPDC, making us the operator of Nigeria's largest oil and gas exploration and production joint venture, the NNPC Renaissance Total Energies AENR JV. I thought I'd get a round of applause for that bigness. I also want to use this opportunity to appreciate the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for the approval of the significant deal, not only of that of the Renaissance, but all the other ones that have happened and are still happening. Thank you very much for pushing that. This milestone set us on a bold path to redefine Nigeria's energy future. And not only Nigeria, to redefine Africa's energy future. Remember what we heard, that what we're doing here, it's being copied not only in the Middle East, but it's also copied across the continent. 1 year on, Renaissance Africa Energy Company Limited continues to deliver on the promise to grow Nigeria and Africa's energy company in a sustainable manner. With oil production increased to well over 40% and gas delivery to Nigeria LNG exceeding DCQ seamlessly, the Renaissance Africa Energy Company Limited is showing that the nation's hope is well placed. We have been exceeding our 2030 target for supply of gas to NLNG in the past 2 months, getting to 2.2 billion scf per day, 4 years ahead of schedule. We continue to receive incredible support from government and industry stakeholders for the pivotal role that we play in the nation's target to increase oil and gas production for improved revenue and for national industrialization. So I want to thank NNPC, I want to thank our regulators for the support that we have been receiving. I always love when Richard anchors because he steals your thunder. He has a very good understanding of the industry. He mentioned something very important just now. We talk about the 40% increase in production after the acquisition of SPDC by Renaissance. Most of that increase, almost 80,000 barrels per day, did not come from greenfields. It did not come from new developments. It did not come from new wells. It came from the optimization of the existing infrastructure. And that's what we're talking about today. It's 70 years, but that 70 years means we have a lot of existing infrastructure, aged, yes, requiring optimization, requiring intelligent optimization and integration of digitalization and new policy frameworks to make that happen. But then I'm getting into my speech. So this is the welcome address. I will just go there very quickly. So with performance built on foundation of operational excellence and a commitment to local value creation and backed by solid joint venture partners and board members, I'm recognizing Adeolu in the house, we have swiftly emerged as a significant player in the region's energy landscape, or in the continent's energy landscape. So against this background, you can then understand why we appreciate the theme for this year. Beyond the 3 million barrels, harmonizing digitalization, that's what we've been doing. Capital, harmonizing capital and redirecting capital and how we spend it. OPEX, CAPEX, and what we spend it on. And of course, working together with the regulators on policies and policy framework. So we believe that this team for this year has helped us already and will continue to help us at the Renaissance Africa Energy Company to achieve our production targets, our Vision 2030, and our overarching vision of becoming Africa's leading oil and gas company, advancing energy security and industrialization in a responsible and sustainable manner. This theme resonates greatly with us as Nigeria deliberately and strategically advances towards optimal utilizations of our nation's abundant national resources for the industrialization of the country, and optimal utilization and enhancement of our existing infrastructure. The focus of this year's lecture, we believe, holds key pillars towards Nigeria achieving this vision. So it's a well selected title. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, SPE. So I wish to extend our sincere appreciation to the SPE Nigerian Council for consistently providing this important platform and many others for collaboration, knowledge sharing, and strategic dialogue on the future of energy in Nigeria and Africa at large. To all the speakers, panelists, and delegates, we look forward to the insightful conversations and bold ideas that will not only drive energy sustainability for Africa, but also position Africa as a leader on the global energy stage. Thank you once again for the opportunity to contribute as your platinum sponsor. That's a lot of money. Thank you very much. We reaffirm, on behalf of Renaissance Africa Energy Company Limited, our unwavering support to the Society of Petroleum Engineers and our shared commitment to a sustainable energy future. Thank you all for your attention, and see you in a bit. One, concerning the topic, not just 3 million barrels target, but remember that the topic actually is beyond the 3 million barrels target. That we get there, that we sustain it, that we increase, that we sustain it, we continue to grow. And here we are to harmonize digitalization, harmonize it with capital provision, harmonize it with the policy frameworks, so that we can have intelligent operations and asset optimization. Like all the times that I've been, what is a lecture without slides? So I'm glad to be presenting you the first set of slides for today. Looking there, you see the first OLEF title, Stability in the Nigerian Energy Sector. And from there, we moved on to driving energy sustainability through technology, policy, and supply chain excellence. And today, we've talked stability, we've talked sustainability. Now we're talking scaling and delivering. So it is my delight to give the lecture for this year's Oloibiri Lecture Series and Energy Forum 2026. I call it OLEF 2026. This platform reminds us of where Nigeria's petroleum journey began and helps us to point out where it must now go. On the opening slide, you will have seen the well. That is the famous Oloibiri well that started this journey for all of us 70 years ago. The name Oloibiri represents discovery. However, our challenge today is no longer discovery. It's how to enable shared value through sustainable growth by harmonizing these frameworks that I've talked about. Our challenge today is delivery, to move on from discovery to improved and efficient delivery. The progression from establishing reliable operating bases to framing repeatable investment performance to now harmonizing frameworks that enable intelligent operations and optimize assets reinforces OLEF's importance as Nigeria's annual platform for veritable discourse that should galvanize priorities into coordinated, measurable results for a stronger and more reliable energy system. So this year's official theme, Beyond 3 Million Barrels Target, captures the mission before us. It recognizes that the new barrels Nigeria seeks will be unlocked by the convergence of digital data, smart funding, and agile policy, not just by geology and petroleum engineering alone. This forum also frames digital transformation as more than an IT conversation. So I was hoping that from that conference, we will have had some discussions on the next data centers, EVP, where we are going to put the next data centers to harmonize everything that everyone is doing. Those are some of the infrastructure that we need to invest in, not only drilling the wells. Now we need to make them intelligent wells. We need to make our production, our entire production infrastructure, our entire production operation intelligent. So I said the future barrel is an intelligent barrel. That's my refrain for today's topic. The future barrel is an intelligent barrel. It must be an intelligent barrel. That's the only way we will get to 3 million barrels and more. Nigerians' ambition to sustainably exceed the 3 million barrels of oil per day by 2030 represents more than a volumetric production challenge. It's a systems integration challenge, involving assets, involving capital, involving policy, and, of course, technology. Despite possessing over 37 billion barrels of proven reserves and extensive gas potential, Nigeria's production performance has been constrained by asset maturity. So not age assets, matured assets. Infrastructure degradation, suboptimal capital allocation, and fragmented policy execution. Nigeria can achieve 3 million barrels. We can sustain it and we can grow beyond it. But the decisive factor will be, yes, we need new reserves. Yes, we need to find more fields, but it's also going to be how intelligently we manage the assets we already operate and how intelligently we design the new assets. The next generation barrel, like I mentioned, must be an intelligent barrel. It will be defined by visibility. It will be defined by infrastructure reliability. It will be defined by capital discipline and policy alignment. In short, as I mentioned before, the future barrel is an intelligent barrel. I've used barrel here as to represent all forms of energy. So you might say the future molecule is an intelligent molecule, or the future kilojoule is an intelligent kilojoule, or megawatt. All of them must be intelligent. We have to integrate intelligence, AI, technology into what we're doing to make it more efficient and to make more of what we need to grow. What's our operating reality? Harmonizing digitalization. Over 60% of our current producing oil assets are mature. We have increasing water cut. I remember once in the North Sea, the water cut rose to a level of 90%. So we used to tease our brothers in Shell in the north then to say that they're a water producing company that happens to have some oil along with it. But we are also getting there on some of our assets. The reservoir pressures are declining, so you need to start thinking about enhanced recovery. And that also means that the operating costs are increasing. So we have to find more efficient ways to produce these assets and to add to them. Without data-driven reservoir surveillance and predictive maintenance, decline management becomes reactive. It also becomes capital inefficient. Of course, there is the issue of capital scarcity and misalignment. Global upstream capital is increasingly selective. Of course, we had, as Richmond reminded us, that a lot of money went into renewable energy. Of course, while the last seminar didn't talk much about that, it won't go away because we need more energy in all forms, and capital is increasingly selective. So we're not only competing in Nigeria with peer African producers, but we're also competing with short cycle US shale. You know, I look at the 20 million barrels of oil per day that US produces, and we are doing 2 million. We need to come closer. We're competing with lower risk LNG developments. We're competing with energy transition investments, amongst others. Across global energy markets and across all industries, capital has become and increasingly becoming selective and is moving towards optimization-led growth. Investors prioritize assets that demonstrate predictability, transparency, resilience, and optimization capability. We need patient capital, and patient capital is very, very selective. Of course, we also, which is part of the theme of today, policy and regulatory execution. Policy and regulation development and implementation needs to accelerate to lead and enable the production revolution. So it was with great happiness to hear of the wonderful things that are ongoing in our regulatory environment. And I can also testify to that with the speed at which we are getting some permits. In December, over the New Year break, we got permit to introduce hydrocarbon. Some people in NUPRC didn't sleep. They were working December 31st, January 1st to give us that approval, even though there were public holidays everywhere. And of course, somebody was on site to turn on those wells and to put on the EPF for Belema. So I'm saying that to say, you can see, as I mentioned earlier on, that the regulators, the government, and joint venture partners are all driving in the same direction. So as operators, we don't have any excuse but to march on and to make sure that this increase in production and this reliability is achieved in our time. Of course, Nigeria is not short of hydrocarbons. We are short of realized hydrocarbons. Capacity exists, but is constrained. Infrastructure exists, but is underutilized. Production exists, but some of it is deferred. Investment exists, but it is cautious. So the question is not whether we can produce more. That's why the title is Beyond 3 million. It's already taken as given that we can do the 3 million. The question is whether we can see our assets clearly enough to deliver what we already have, safely, reliably, and transparently. Digital capability has become both a production assurance mechanism and a signal of capital credibility. Investors now ask where production risks can be anticipated early, whether infrastructure integrity can be demonstrated, whether evacuation certainty can be proven, and whether deferments can be reduced before they accumulate. Credible, timely, and auditable data now forms the backbone of production assurance, as investors focus as much on future resilience as they do on current output. So we said next year the topic is, what are you doing? I will give you an example of what we're doing. And I'll give you a joke too. For this lecture, I actually had a version of the lecture that was prepared by AI. It's like, do I say that one or do I read this one that has been? So we are using AI in many ways. And just last week, I have our GM here, and you will see him later on the panel, had all the top members in Renaissance. We had a one-day lecture and workshop on AI, on how we use AI better and more in our company, the Renaissance Africa Energy Company Limited. So this is just an example about seeing, but I'll also go back. When I joined Shell that has now become Renaissance, there was a wonderful gentleman called Alabi Mafe. The story or the legend was, if he held the flow line, he could tell you what the flow rate was. If he held the flow line, so all you just need to call him, he will hold the flow line, I'll tell you, this is the flow rate from this my well today. And those days, okay, if it was not Alabi Murphy on duty, you had to call from the office and say, to get the flow line data, to get the production data from each well, you had to call every morning. That was somebody's job. But today, that doesn't happen. Today, we can open our phones and see what is producing. Or if you want to be more elaborate, I can come down from my office to the middle floor, to the central production center, and see the wells that are producing, what each facility is doing across our footprint for most of our assets. So we are making progress. Well, thank you very much for that. And of course, the next bit of it is, yes, you can see, but then what do you do with the data? And how do you use the data to optimize your production, to improve your efficiency, and to increase your reliability? So this is just an example. So EVP, I'm on your case today. We are putting the sensors in there, and we have put 700 smart sensors into 150 wells across our operations. WRFM has been very powerful, especially in the past 1 year. And if you remember what I said in the original sponsors' comments, almost 80% of the oil production that increased in the past 1 year came primarily from WRFM activities, from this kind of stuff, looking at the data, engineering the data, and using it to increase production. But there is much more to do, much more to do. And that's what we're talking about today. So it's the difference between discovering lost production next week and preventing it today. Intelligent operations in practice, that's what we need. That's what we must do. That's how we get to 3 million. That's how we exceed 3 million barrels of oil per day in Nigeria. So these smart sensors, they give us first-time, real-time visibility across infrastructure. Now you can't produce, you can't have 150 Mr. Alabi Murphys. It's not efficient, and it is not actually the best use of human time. But now, you can sit on your computer and you can see this data, and you can use the data to improve performance. We have other examples. Manifold monitoring strengthens transparency along shared evacuation corridors and improves coordination with third-party injectors. We are, of course, installing meters in the places where we didn't have them now to help us with all of this. These are not pilots. They are production multipliers active in Nigeria's mature assets. What's the fastest way to produce more oil? I've answered the question already, but let's take another quick travel into the past, where a fall in throughput along shared corridors, like pipelines, will only be discovered when volumes were deferred. Okay, it's when we now fiscalize at the terminal before we know what is missing. With real-time manifold flow difference monitoring, operators can detect the imbalances early and coordinate faster and intervene across the entire corridor. So I'll tell you, one of the fastest ways to produce more oil is simply to see the pipeline better. And that's what we have been seeing in our Renaissance operations. Workovers, data analysis, opening up old wells, improving integrity, predictive maintenance, and using that to arrange the resources that we have with respect to the performance of the equipment and the facilities. And we are just starting. So let's go again to WRFM, which is wells, reservoirs, and facilities management as an engine of intelligent operations. Intelligent operations emerge from integrated environments where reservoir behavior, well performance, facilities reliability, and evacuation systems are managed together in an ecosystem. That's the essence of modern WRFM. It's becoming the operational nerve center of optimization-led production growth and is essential for sustaining production at scale. Confirming a shut-in once required a marine trip that will incur cost, delay, and exposure. Today, continuous wellhead monitoring enables remote diagnosis before mobilization. So you don't need to go there to know what happened. You can see from your CCTV, you can see from your sensors, you can see from the screen, right there at the plant and right there in the office. And if you want, you can open your phone and see what is happening. Let me go on to the next one on funding, the mechanics of funding. financing the intangibles is what I call them. To turn intelligence and tune it into the barrels, I said the future barrel is an intelligent barrel. We must fund the intangibles. We must bring the AWS and the Microsoft and the rest of them to work with local partners to develop our own data centers. We must integrate the data, not only in one company, but across the entire industry, so that we can learn together, we can collaborate, we can work together, and we can improve the entire industry together. As mentioned earlier, you need your digital twins, you need your analytic models, you need your corridor visibility systems so that you can see and so that we can make intelligent barrels. So our proposition to financiers is straightforward. So we've had government and policymakers. We haven't had any of the financiers, so we look forward to listening to them during the panel session. Optimization is a de-risking mechanism that stabilizes volume and cash flows. And I know that's what the financiers like. Therefore, we should consider, not we should, we must consider capital structuring for digital assets. We should start looking at our digital assets the same way we look at the wells and the pipelines and the turbines and the pumps. We need to recognize them and collateralize their digital infrastructure that extends asset life and reduces risk. We should also align depreciation and amortization schedules with the useful life of digital systems and models to reflect value creation. We should codify asset optimization projects as eligible for performance-linked financing and blended capital instruments. So it's not only when someone comes and says, I want to drill a well. No, it should be much more than that. What we're asking for is that funding, serious capital structure funding, should go into optimization and into digitization and digitalization efforts. Why? Because digitalization drives asset performance. So that's a note to operators like ourselves. Digitalization is increasingly being executed, not as standalone technology programs that is handled by the IT department only, but as capital-aligned and policy-enabled transformation. That's the way we need to see digitalization. That's the way we need to see technology and IT in particular. In Renaissance, digital initiatives are already delivering measurable value by shifting operations from reactive response to predictive intelligence-led performance. So I'm happy to say in Renaissance, we're already delivering intelligent barrels. So real-time operations provide continuous asset visibility and improved uptime, while AI-driven predictive maintenance reduces unplanned downtime and cost. Integrated asset modeling optimizes technical and economic decisions, supported by transparency and solutions such as crude theft monitoring and targeted IoTs modernization that strengthens resilience and cybersecurity. Together, these capabilities are helping us to improve production reliability, helping us to improve our efficiency, and helping us to improve capital discipline. So we share a case from Renaissance digital roadmap that is anchored on capital discipline and policy alignment, because it's becoming increasingly evident that we must abandon siloed thinking in our approach to achieving Renaissance 2030 ambition towards contribution to the 3 million barrels target of Nigeria. So that's a digital roadmap for us in Renaissance. The emerging themes that you can see from there is all of us recognizing that trusted data is a production enabler. We want to move from just tools, IT makes tools, and you say, oh, well done there, but using those tools to make decisions. So the roadmap positions digitalization as a business and operational enabler by establishing strong data foundations, resilient connectivity, and enterprise architecture to create a secure, governed, and AI-ready backbone. It integrates next-generation enterprise resource planning and digital project engineering to standardize processes. It improves financial and compliance visibility and accelerates capital delivery, while scaling AI-driven and digitally enabled use cases across operations, subsurface wells, and exploration to reduce deferment and to improve efficiency. But we're not only using it for existing operations. We still have greenfield projects, and that knowledge is being transferred from the brownfield to the new projects that we're designing. Because this intelligent barrel will come from existing infrastructure, but it will also come from greenfield operations. So together, these capabilities embed intelligence across the asset lifecycle, ensuring digital investment directly supports capital efficiency, production growth, and regulatory compliance, rather than operating in parallel to them. Intelligent operations are being shaped by a shift towards trusted, auditable data as a core enabler of production performance and investment confidence. Digital systems are evolving from reporting tools into AI-driven decision support, with success increasingly defined by adoption and day-to-day operational impact rather than deployment alone. Digitalization now spans the full asset cycle, improving reliability, reducing downtime, and stronger asset integrity emerge as the fastest path to growth in mature assets. Okay, so I'm looking at the time. I thought I had 20 minutes until I saw the agenda and saw that it was 10. So I will endeavor to summarize. We have talked a lot about policy today, so and very good news from all our regulators, so fantastic. I will jump on that on policy. And let me start going towards the final end. In terms of our own strategic recommendations, of course, we need predictive integrated production control. And I said, of course. I've already demonstrated how we're doing that already in Renaissance. But the challenge to the industry is we actually would like to see that across the entire industry. I'd like the VP to be able to sit in his office and see what is happening across all of his assets everywhere at the touch of a button. Production commingling in all wells. If you can get the fingerprinting, that can be done. Geochemical fingerprinting technology, and we can produce multiple reservoirs from just one well. End-to-end digital production and evacuation transparency. Digitize our evacuation corridors from well manifold to terminal, enabling real-time visibility of constraints, of losses, and integrity risks across the value chain, and having that information available to everyone that needs to have it. Intelligent asset optimization mandates, actually. So just like I mentioned, EVP was asking, come and show me what you're doing about innovation. It does help to have the mandates written in. Require every major producing asset to do just what he's been asking for. Submit a digitally enabled optimization roadmap, embedding predictive analytics, automation, and lifecycle performance tracking. And of course, asset health, so that we don't have aged assets. We just have matured assets that are producing at their prime. National digital production infrastructure and data governance, fiscal alignment with digital and recovery outcomes. So those data centers and those investments in IT, in that intelligent barrel, we need additional frameworks and different ways of looking at the treatment. Capability governance and performance redefinition. And of course, we need to align all these incentives across the value chain. So for Renaissance, our value, we say crisp: collaboration, respect, integrity, safety, and performance. So earlier today, I shared with you that in Renaissance Africa, we were celebrating our first year since that day in March 2025, when the federal government of Nigeria, led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, approved the landmark acquisition of the shares of Shell in SPDC joint venture. That was a courageous decision that all indices show is paying off handsomely. Improved production with over 40% increase in oil production within the first 100 days, enabled by WRFM, enabled by technology, enabled by AI, enabled by joint venture partners, enabled by regulators. We didn't do that alone. We did it together with you. We've had stability in the industry as against what would have happened if the joint venture had been broken into smaller components. We've had improved revenue, of course, from the increased production and from the improvement in efficiency. So where goodwill is aligning with the deliberate strategy to have communities reps in the HCDTs, that has also led to their own development and increased our social performance. So I will jump to the closing as I see Richmond standing very closely behind me to say to everyone, I believe that what we are talking about today, harmonizing digitalization, capital and policy frameworks, is essential for intelligent operations and asset optimization. Fantastic choice of a theme. It's what the industry really needs now. So for all of us, I like the name Renaissance. I says it is a season of renaissance. Oloibiri was about discovery. Now we are about delivery. We are all renaissance. Every company should see renaissance in themselves as we improve the infrastructure that we have, and then as we get into the green fields and the brown fields. That name carries the dreams of this industry. Let us work together these dreams of industrialization and development for our people, better than our forebears may have done with the first Oloibiri. This is our own Oloibiri, the one that brings back the real positive promise of all discovery and impact on our nation and unleashing creativity within our people. When we talk about 3 million barrels a day, we tend to rush to drilling and building new things. We need those, but we also need to make the most of what we already have. Across our infrastructure, there are barrels already on the table, trapped behind uncertainty. Barrels waiting for corridor visibility, barrels waiting for predictive maintenance, barrels waiting for that integration of innovation and capital and policy. If we align digital capability, if we align financing frameworks, if we align regulation policy, Nigeria will reach 3 million barrels per day and sustain it and protect it and even grow beyond it. So let us see more, let us lose less, let us deliver better, let us deliver those intelligent molecules, those intelligent barrels, those intelligent scopes of gas. Thank you very much.
VP Projects and Engineering for Renaissance Africa Energy Company. Abimbola Tijani there representing the Managing Director, Engineer Tony Atta. Please, another applause for